The year 1933 dawned upon a Germany teetering on the precipice of disaster. The Great Depression had left the country in ruins, with its economy shattered and its people in despair. The once proud nation was mired in economic depression and political instability. Businesses were closing down and the streets were filled with the hopeless faces of those who had lost everything. Millions were unemployed, their hopes crushed under the weight of poverty and despair. The social fabric of the nation was unraveling, and the future seemed bleak. The Weimar Republic, already fragile, was on the verge of collapse. Political infighting and extremist movements were tearing the government apart. From the ashes of this chaos rose a figure of both charisma and menace, Adolf Hitler. He was a man who understood the power of words and the art of persuasion. A master of propaganda and manipulation, Hitler had spent years cultivating the image of a strong leader who could restore Germany to its former glory. His speeches were filled with promises of a new dawn for the German people. His National Socialist German Workers' Party, the Nazi Party, preyed on the fears and frustrations of the German people, promising them a way out of their misery. They offered simple solutions to complex problems, and the people were eager to believe. Hitler's message resonated with alarming effectiveness. His ability to connect with the masses and tap into their emotions was unparalleled. He offered scapegoats for Germany's woes, blaming the Jews, communists, and the Treaty of Versailles for their suffering. This rhetoric of hate and division found fertile ground in a nation desperate for answers. His rallies were spectacles of fervent nationalism and chilling anti-Semitism, drawing in increasingly larger crowds. The atmosphere was electric and the sense of unity and purpose was intoxicating for many. As the Weimar Republic faltered, the Nazi Party gained momentum, becoming a potent force in German politics. Their influence grew, and their message spread like wildfire. The stage was set for a dramatic power grab. The Nazi stormtroopers, with their intimidating presence, enforced the party's will and silenced opposition. The very foundations of German democracy were about to be shaken to their core. The Reichstag fire would be the catalyst for a series of events that would change the course of history. The year 1933 would mark a turning point in history, the year that Adolf Hitler, the demagogue, would take his first steps towards absolute power. His appointment as Chancellor was the beginning of a dark chapter. The year that Adolf Hitler, the demagogue, would take his first steps towards absolute power, plunging Germany and the world into darkness. The symbols of the Nazi regime began to spread, a harbinger of the horrors to come. Hitler's rise to power was swift and ruthless. His speeches in 1933 were filled with ominous promises, and dark clouds loomed over Germany, both literally and metaphorically, as the nation braced for the storm ahead. Germany in 1933 was a nation gripped by fear and deep uncertainty. The Great Depression had hit the country extremely hard, leaving millions unemployed and desperate for relief. The political landscape was highly fragmented, with extremist parties on both the left and right gaining significant support. The Weimar Republic, already weakened by years of instability, seemed utterly unable to cope with the crisis. Amidst this turmoil, Hitler and the Nazi Party saw a golden opportunity. They exploited the economic misery and political chaos to their advantage, portraying themselves as the only ones who could restore order and prosperity to the nation. Hitler, with his fiery rhetoric and grand promises of national revival, became a beacon of hope for many disillusioned Germans. The Nazis' rise to prominence was both swift and alarming. In the July 1932 elections, they became the largest party in the Reichstag, the German parliament. Although they fell short of a majority, their newfound power allowed them to exert significant influence on the already weakened government. President Paul von Hindenburg, a conservative figurehead, initially resisted appointing Hitler as chancellor. However, under immense pressure from conservative politicians who believed they could control him, Hindenburg reluctantly agreed. On January 30, 1933, Adolf Hitler, the leader of the Nazi Party, became Chancellor of Germany, marking a fateful turning point in the nation's history. Just weeks after Hitler's appointment as Chancellor, a series of events unfolded that would forever change the trajectory of Germany. A pivotal event occurred that would forever alter the course of German history: the Reichstag fire. On the night of February 27, 1933, the Reichstag building, the symbol of German democracy, was engulfed in flames. The fire was a shocking and dramatic event that sent ripples of fear and uncertainty throughout the nation. The circumstances surrounding the fire remain shrouded in mystery to this day. The blaze was sudden and intense, leaving many questions unanswered and fueling a myriad of conspiracy theories. While a Dutch communist, Marinus van der Lubbe, was caught at the scene and confessed to the crime, his involvement has been the subject of much debate. Some argue that van der Lubbe acted alone, driven by his radical beliefs. However, many believe the fire was a deliberate act of arson orchestrated by the Nazis themselves. This theory suggests that the Nazis used van der Lubbe as a scapegoat to justify their subsequent actions. Regardless of its true origins, the Reichstag fire played perfectly into Hitler's hands. It provided him with the pretext he needed to push forward his agenda with ruthless efficiency. He immediately seized upon the incident to consolidate his power and eliminate his political opponents. The fire was used as a tool to stoke fear and justify extreme measures. Declaring a state of emergency, Hitler suspended civil liberties and launched a brutal crackdown on communists and other perceived enemies of the state. The atmosphere of fear and repression grew rapidly. With the nation gripped by fear and uncertainty, Hitler pushed through the Enabling Act. This was a critical move in his strategy to gain absolute power. This law, passed by the Reichstag on March 23, 1933, effectively granted Hitler dictatorial powers. The Enabling Act was a turning point that allowed Hitler to bypass the democratic process entirely. The Enabling Act allowed the Chancellor to enact laws without the consent of the Reichstag, effectively bypassing the democratic process and giving Hitler absolute control over the government. This marked the beginning of a new era in German politics. The Reichstag fire and the Enabling Act marked a decisive turning point in Hitler's rise to power. These events were instrumental in dismantling the democratic structures of the Weimar Republic. With the opposition silenced and the constitution suspended, Hitler was free to dismantle the Weimar Republic and establish his totalitarian dictatorship. The Reichstag fire and the Enabling Act were not just isolated incidents, but were part of a broader strategy to reshape Germany under Nazi rule. The impact of these events was profound and far-reaching, setting the stage for the dark years of Nazi domination that would follow. The Reichstag fire and the Enabling Act were key moments in the establishment of a regime that would lead to unprecedented atrocities and a world at war. By the summer of 1934, Hitler had effectively neutralized his political opponents and consolidated his control over the government. His rise to power had been swift and calculated, marked by a series of strategic moves that left little room for opposition. However, one potential threat to his power remained: the Sturmabteilung, or SA. This paramilitary wing of the Nazi Party had been instrumental in Hitler's ascent, providing the muscle and intimidation needed to silence dissent. The SA, the Nazi Party's paramilitary wing, had played a crucial role in Hitler's rise to power, but their growing influence and demands for a second revolution made Hitler wary. The SA's increasing boldness and calls for radical changes were becoming a liability. The SA, led by Ernst Röhm, a close associate of Hitler's, had swelled to over 3 million members by 1934. Röhm's vision for the SA was ambitious and far-reaching, aiming to reshape the very fabric of German society. Röhm, a powerful and ambitious figure, envisioned a socialist revolution that would abolish the traditional German army and replace it with the SA. This radical idea threatened the existing power structures and alarmed many within the Nazi leadership. This vision clashed with Hitler's own plans, which relied on the support of the army and the conservative elites. Hitler understood that maintaining the loyalty of the traditional military was crucial for his long-term goals. Fearing Röhm's ambition and determined to secure the support of the army, Hitler decided to eliminate the SA leadership. The stakes were high, and Hitler knew that decisive action was necessary to prevent a potential coup. On June 30, 1934, in a ruthless purge known as the Night of the Long Knives, Hitler ordered the arrest and execution of Röhm and dozens of other high-ranking SA officials. This brutal crackdown was swift and merciless, designed to send a clear message. The purge sent shockwaves through Germany. The sudden and violent removal of the SA leadership stunned the nation and demonstrated the lengths to which Hitler would go to secure his power. It demonstrated the ruthlessness with which Hitler was prepared to eliminate anyone he perceived as a threat, even former allies. The fear and uncertainty that followed served to consolidate his control further. The Night of the Long Knives also served to further consolidate Hitler's power. By eliminating the SA's leadership, Hitler not only removed a significant threat but also solidified his alliance with the German military, ensuring their loyalty and support for his future endeavors.